right, all right. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, y'all. It's Brian Forbes. You are tuned in to The Black Factor, where perspective is everything. And I got the news that you can use. Y'all, man, it's a lot going on, but I think y'all know that already. So, we're not going to waste no time today. We're going to jump straight on up in this thing. We're going to jump straight in this thing and get this party started. I hope you're all ready. We got a lot of crazy stuff to talk about today, y'all. Whole lot of double standards in the world. And we're going to chop it up and chat about that. But today, it's a twist, y'all. It's a twist on the game. And the reason why is because what we're going to talk about today is migration. We're going to talk about black folks and the best places within these United States for black folks to be living. Kinda. You'll enjoy it. Don't worry about it. I got this. I got you faded, y'all. Here we go. All right. Here we go. Okay, so I gotta cover the preliminaries before we get real heavy into the topic. And one unexpected thing that came up today, y'all, was my man Hank Aaron. So we're gonna spend a little time before we get too heavy into the topic at hand, and we're gonna talk about that right quick because I got a couple of things I need to point out, particularly about my man Hank, or should I say Henry Hank Hammer Aaron. All right. Today, Lloyd Austin, y'all. 4-star general, retired 4-star general, Lloyd Austin. My man got confirmed by the Senate. So that'll make him the first black Secretary of Defense in U.S. history. So once again, we're making history. That means he is the new man at the Pentagon. He is top dog. He's running things, and that is a beautiful thing. So that's what's up. That's a lovely thing. That's a lovely thing. Regina Freeman, I see you. Hey, thanks for checking in. Val Wells, always on deck. Val, I'm gonna have to do something nice for you. You support me, and I just really appreciate you like you wouldn't believe. Thank you, Val. You too, Regina. I appreciate you too. All right. Before we get, man, now this right here, y'all gonna get a kick out of this. This right here. Ladies and gentlemen, in case you didn't know, I want to introduce you to 20-year-old Emmanuel Jackson. Emmanuel Jackson, as it turns out, turned himself in. And so he, of course, has been arrested and is currently in custody. Now, one of the main reasons why I want to talk about Emmanuel Jackson today, in particular, is because Emmanuel Jackson seems to be a bit typical of what we are accustomed to from law enforcement in America. Now, I don't condone any of his actions. He shouldn't have been there. Of course, none of them should have been there. However, let's just take this particular situation and look at it really well. So this guy, a young black male, 20 years old, decided, and it makes you wonder really what's on his mind. What the hell was this cat thinking? He went to Washington and joined his comrades in storming the Capitol. So he turned himself in because, as you can see, this particular shot that you're looking at is a body cam shot from an officer. And if you look again, you can see that he is holding a baseball bat, which he used to beat officers with. So he's been charged with beating a police officer with a baseball bat, obstruction of official proceedings, illegal entry, violent entry into a U.S. district court. All of these are federal charges now. Now, first, they say he punched an officer with his fist while trying to forcibly enter the building. 3 hours later, the surveillance footage caught him using a metal bat to attack officers of the Capitol Police. Now, why is this special? Of course, this is the Black Factor. We talk about all things black, even the things that we find strange and we may or may not like. Well, Emmanuel Jackson is being held without bail, and he will sit in jail until his trial. Now, what's wrong with this picture? See, how is it that I can find it within myself to try to defend an insurrectionist, a person who attempted to circumvent our Constitution and destroy democracy by helping those who would see us back in chains if it was up to them? Now, what's wrong with this picture is every other individual that we have witnessed that they have arrested and charged, many of whom are on house arrest, many of whom have been let go on their own recognizance. And of course, we know the difference between them and old Emmanuel here. And that is only one thing right here. You can try and sugarcoat it all you want, but the fact of the matter is, homeboy got caught slipping. And so he will sit in jail until his trial, unlike his equally violent counterparts and those who did the exact same things he did, who have gone home until their trial. That's what's wrong with this picture. But who am I? He must make his mother proud. So, today, y'all, it is unfortunate that we must bid adieu and our final farewells to Henry Louis Aaron, better known as Hammerin' Hank, number 44. He done gone home to glory, y'all. He got his baseball wings today at the age of 86. Now, for those of you who don't know, those of you who may not be sports inclined or sports involved, Hank Aaron is the man who broke Babe Ruth's home run record back in the year of 1974. Now, he played 23 seasons of baseball from 1954 to 1976. 21 of those seasons was with the Milwaukee Atlanta Braves because they moved from Milwaukee to Atlanta. Now, he was regarded as one of the greatest baseball players of all time. He hit 755 career home runs and held the record for 33 years until that record was broken by Barry Bonds. I think that was in 2007 or something like that. Anyway, so with that record, he hit 24 more home runs every year from 1955 to 1973. And the only one of two players to ever hit 30 or more in one season at least 15 times. 15 seasons, he hit at least 30 or more home runs during his 23 seasons at play. So he's in the top 5 of multiple categories of records, aside from still holding several. Let's see. He still holds the record for most RBIs. That's runs batted in, for those who don't know. Extra bases and total bases. He still, to this day, holds that record. And he retired in 1976. Now, the thing about it is, this guy was a pioneer. He was the sort of the guy who followed Jackie Robinson and some of the others who broke into he's the one, Jackie Robinson's the one who broke into the major leagues first black man to be given a shot at the majors. And with that, unfortunately, comes a certain level of other stuff. So I'm going to show you some of this other stuff. Before he went to bat, or before he was going to break Babe Ruth's record, which of course, offended lots of white people, he was sent lots of hate mail. And this one, which is partially legible, it says here that basically, and it's barely readable, because obviously the person that wrote it is not the most intelligent individual either. Part of the letter says that if you will get rid of some of these niggers and put in white ball players, we can use judgment and could win a pennant and fill that park. So basically they were just saying that, white folks didn't like all the black players and they wanted them to get him out of there, and they didn't want him to break Babe Ruth's record. And so this sort of thing became, I guess, normal. Like, this was some regular stuff going on. Here's another one. Dear Mr. Now that other one was to the president of the organization. This one was directly to him. Dear Mr. Nigger, I hope you don't break the Babe's record. How do I tell my kids that a nigger did it? But it took more at-bats, live ball, and other nigger tricks. I wish you the worst, and anything you do, nigger. KKK forever. So, I bring these points up for a reason. And in fact, these are only a couple of the many that he received. But nonetheless, I heard a quote that he made at some time that particularly stated that although he was threatened, he didn't care. He was going to do what he had to do because he had to make Jackie Robinson, his family, and America proud. Because, of course, there were a lot of other people pulling for him. So just know this guy was one of the greatest to ever do it. And this is the dark side of all of this. And this also goes back to how we've been over these multiple shows since all of this kind of stuff broke out with the different organizations that want to take down democracy. The true ambassadors of hate and violence, although we always manage to be saddled with that moniker. Yet, no matter what happens, every single time we see people of color make any strides toward attempting to be successful, we almost always are subjected to these sorts of slurs, hatred, threats. See, this same attitude that we are witnessing here is the same sort of attitude that we've had to deal with where this insurrection has taken place. The same sort of attitude that where when they can't have their way, it becomes threats, then violence. And then the minute a black person begins to defend themselves or move about their way and their business, they're the ones that are wrong. They're the ones that are playing the race card. I got a t-shirt I made, y'all. I want y'all to see. I'm going to put it up here soon. I'm going to put it on the website, quotedlife.com. That's my t-shirts. And I'm going to put it up there. That shirt is called the race card. And we're going to put that one up for sale this weekend. So stay tuned for that. So the thing is, it becomes annoying at some point when the victims always manage to play the villain. I mean, the villains always manage to play the victim. Kind of reminds me of the guy who just left the White House. But I'm going to remind you and I'm going to make you aware that is not in the history of this country. There has not been one time where a black person has ever threatened to murder any white man because he was successful at what he was doing. Whenever my white counterparts get tired of talking about the race card and they're tired of us using the so-called race card, all they have to do is remove the deck. Take your stacked deck and move it out of the way. See, the race card only comes up when black people are trying to defend themselves or seek justice or seek equality or try not to be dehumanized. Suddenly, when you defend yourself, all of a sudden you're playing the race card. Saying that a person is playing the race card is racist within itself. But of course, they don't see it that way. Because they think they have the ability to tell you how to feel about the way they treat you. Imagine that. Isn't that something? See, racism is not a black problem. It's a white problem. And all they have to do is, those who claim that they are not racist, all they have to do is stop their hateful brethren from killing our unarmed youth, attack those who look just like them for doing things to those who look like us so that we don't have to. If you were so interested in supporting black lives, you would defend black lives and black people from your own kind. But you're not going to do that because you don't think it's your problem. And that's unfortunate. I don't recall any black person sending hate mail to any white folks saying, if you go out and you hit another home run, we're going to kill you. We're going to murder your family. We're going to blow up your house. I don't recall any black person saying to any white person, we're going to bomb your church and we're going to blow up your house if you don't stop trying to register people to vote. I don't recall any group of black people going to a city like Wilmington, North Carolina, and enacting the only successful coup d'etat against government in this country, in the history of this country, because they didn't like the makeup of the people who were going to be running that city. See, here's the funny thing. The cabinet that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have put together, the diversity of it is very reminiscent of those who lived in Wilmington, North Carolina, and who had been duly elected to offices at that time. There was diversity. There was mixed race people. There was all sorts of people of color in duly elected positions. But they came in and they decided they didn't want that, so they killed a bunch of them, ousted them from offices, and took over themselves. I don't recall any black folks ever doing that. So, after all these years, none of this has been fixed. None of this has been dealt with, not really. Which tells us all that this is not a priority for any of them. This is only a priority for us. And it doesn't mean anything because we continue to ask for freedom. Power concedes nothing without demand. And we all know that. But here's the other thing about this situation with my man Hank Aaron, y'all. Now, here's the crazy part. Now, I'm not going to sit here and I'm not making no kind of parallels. Let me just say it like that. However, I did notice today that they had not released a cause of death for my man Hank Aaron, and that is unfortunate. Why do I say that? Because, as it turns out, apparently Mr. Aaron had a COVID vaccine shot on the 6th. No, the 5th, I'm sorry. January 5th. He got his COVID-19 vaccine shot. Looks pretty healthy to me.
Makes me feel wonderful. I don't have any qualms about it at all. You know, I feel quite proud of myself of doing something like this. You know, it's just a small thing that can help zillions of people in this country.
Why is this area?
All right, so like I said, I'm not making any parallels. I'm just saying. So my man went and got his COVID-19 shot on the 5th. Today is the 22nd, and he has checked out. Y'all take that for whatever it's worth. He did it, he said, to make sure that other black folks did not feel uncomfortable about taking the vaccine shot and that it was safe. So may Henry Aaron rest in peace. So, funny thing about part of his time with the team, I found out that, and I didn't know this, but while they were around he was on a team around Jacksonville, Florida, when he was in the minors. Now this guy never finished high school. He definitely lived and died by his dream. But I found out that he had been mostly separated from his team during his time down there because of the Jim Crow laws. He literally could not go anywhere with the rest of the team, so he had to chill out somewhere else. And then there was, when he was in the minor leagues playing on a black baseball team, he can remember being in a restaurant where the team ate, and the rest of the people who worked there, when they finished eating, they turned around and broke all the plates and threw away the silverware because black people had eaten on them. Now, you got to remember, this guy came up during a rough time, straight from Alabama. That's where he's from. And that's kind of how that went. Now, when he got ready to break Babe Ruth's record, he finished the 1973 season he was one home run away from tying Babe Ruth's record. So he ended up taking that season off. But strangely enough, he was afraid that he wasn't going to live to see the 1974 season because he had so many death threats. In fact, they ended up giving him an FBI detail to follow him around for security, just to keep him alive. That's a damn shame. Man got to walk around with FBI because of all of the hateful, violent individuals in this country, following him around, threatening him because he was about to one-up a white man. Dig that. Louis Gizzard, at the time, he was a sports editor for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I don't think it was Atlanta Journal-Constitution at the time. I think it was just Atlanta Journal. Said he had received numerous phone calls calling all of the news reporters nigger lovers for covering Hank Aaron's rise to stardom and success with the home run quest, or the all-time home run record. Now, the funny thing was, this guy Grizzard, he wrote an obituary. He just did it because he literally was afraid that the bigots and the racists and hateful white people might actually follow through and kill Hank Aaron. So, of course, he was protected, like I said, by the FBI. They had to literally send in the feds to take care of this guy. So, at his first bat of the next season, on April 4th, 1974, his first swing of the season, off of pitcher Jack Billingham, he sent the ball to the stands, which made it 714, which tied Babe Ruth's record. So 715 came on April 8th against the Dodgers in Braves Stadium. And I remember that day. I was watching that game, and of course, you know, my chest swelled up. I was a little boy, and I was very happy to see that come to pass. That was a good day. But like many pioneering black people, despite the hate, discrimination, attempts to stop him, attempts to intimidate him, he persevered, he carried on, and he set the standard. He made it happen, y'all. Now, one of his quotes, "Too bad integration didn't come sooner, because there were so many ball players that could have made the major leagues. That's why you look back, and not to take anything away from Babe Ruth or some of those other guys, but they didn't play against the greatest ball players in the world." Now, on a previous show, y'all remember me talking about how black people had been excluded from so many things, and still are in many ways, purely out of fear, because they don't want to get beat at their own game. So they'll do everything in their power, and they have done that throughout history, to keep us from being on the same playing field so that they don't have to look bad. Ooh-wee. All right, y'all, we're going to get to the topic at hand. We're going to get to the main thing. The main thing is, where are the best places in America for black folks to move? Because a lot of people are moving around right now. A lot of migration, especially out of the big cities, particularly Chicago. Well, let me say this to those people who are entertaining or have entertained moving or relocating. Fear has stopped more people from getting what they want than failure ever did. You cannot be afraid. Although I understand it, because a lot of times, you know, that fear, it is something that comes from conditioning. And when you're in an environment and the conditions in those environments create those fears, it makes you think twice. It makes you afraid to move forward. Well, a lot of people, they try to find somewhere to live based on certain criteria. But that criteria usually is a lot of times hearsay. Because, for example, you know, you hear people say, "Oh, man, you ought to move to Atlanta. Atlanta got it going on. Black people are doing it in Atlanta." They used to call Washington, D.C. Chocolate City. And then you had places, you know, where black people have thrived. And historically speaking, we've had that in the past. Now, the bottom line is this. And I'm going to tell y'all, I spent a lot of time watching a lot of videos and talking to people and checking things out. And at the end of the day, you have to decide really and truly what's best for you. You can listen to what other people say, and people will tell you things about certain cities, and they'll be like, "Oh man, this city is banging. You ought to go there. You ought to check this out." And let me caution you, going to visit a place and just kind of hanging around for a little while, you are not going to get the feel for really what that city is. You might go there and be like, "Oh, it's beautiful. I think I'd like to move here." And then you move there and you find out that it's not as beautiful as you thought, or the underlying things that take place are not something that you want to deal with. And trust me, I have moved enough for everybody on this feed. Trust me, I've moved all over the country. I've lived damn near from coast to coast. And I can tell you there are some places that you have expectations of and it just doesn't pan out. And then there are other places that you go and you think, "Wow, I didn't know this place was doing it like this. I would have came here sooner." So you have to consider your own needs individually. Now, the thing is this. I said in the title of this show that we're going to talk about the best cities for black folks to move, but not really. We are, but not really. And here's why. Because this is the sort of thing that it's going to depend on what your needs are, because everybody's needs are different. I've not run across one set of answers, one set of videos, one conversation that all agreed on really anything. I think a lot of this is so opinion based. Now, there are the numbers, a lot of the numbers do speak for themselves, but a lot of it is real opinion based, to be honest with you. That's the conclusion that I've come to. Now, some places, for example, are going to be better for single people. Some places are going to be better for couples. Some places are going to be better depending on what kind of work you do. Some places are going to be better depending on what kind of weather you like. So, the thing is this. There was a migration, and here's where I'll bring the history in. Y'all know I love to put the history with it. We had a migration from the South after slavery, which brought a lot of blacks forward to the North. That mostly happened between the late 1800s after the destruction of Reconstruction, but more so around 1910 or 1920. A lot of black folks came out of the South. So the black population in a lot of northern cities got bigger. And of course, this is where your so-called ghettos came from, because black people had been redlined. As long as we've been in this country, we've been told where we can and can't live and treated accordingly. So of course, a lot of black folks was put into, a lot of areas together, which is really not a bad thing if you think about it, provided the right things are done, which in a lot of cases, the right things were done. And we can use Tulsa, Oklahoma, for example, Black Wall Street. We can use Rosewood. We can use Wilmington, North Carolina. We can use all of the different communities across America that were self-sufficient, all black, and thriving, that were all destroyed by white people, usually over lies, but mostly because they couldn't stand the idea that black people were uppity, because they actually could afford to do what they wanted and they had more money than them. So the easy way out, let's just destroy everything they have, and usually no one ever went to jail for it. Now, let me put my caveat in, like I always do, to my white fans. Don't listen to anything that I say. Don't believe me. Look it up for yourself. The information is out there, and it's the truth. I don't go about making up stuff on my show. So, of course, in the North, when they left during those times, there was a lot of jobs in the factories up there. You had in Chicago in particular, you had your stockyards. Then you had the steel mills. You had in Detroit, you had the auto plants, and all of the things that began to grow up. Now I'm speaking about a long period of time, a swath of time that goes anywhere from the late 1800s all the way up into the 1940s or 50s, because a lot of people did still migrate during those times and into the North. So there was work, and people were able to, take care of themselves and make a better living because, of course, they weren't necessarily going to be incredibly prosperous down in the South, sharecropping and having to kowtow to whatever white folks told them to do. In the 1800s, after the destruction of Reconstruction, white ex-slave owners and those who sympathized with the Confederacy caused blacks to head north to try to avoid all of the pitfalls of post-slavery attitudes and racism, leaving behind lynching, sharecropping, black codes, Jim Crow, and of course the Klan, our first terrorist organization in America that still to this day has not been labeled as a terrorist organization, although it is. That's what they did. They terrorized people. I really don't know what it's going to take. But then again, we must remember that, like the insurrection that took place at the Capitol, there were multiple law enforcement as well as military, firemen, bankers, doctors, lawyers, all present and breaking the law. So what can we expect? The only difference was they didn't have hoods on this time. So, of course, black folks were seeking better economic opportunities, and they moved that way. Now, from what I can tell, these are the top cities that, based on everything that I read, heard, and talked about, these are the top places that are best for black people, where a combination of things works in favor of being black and trying to acquire excellence. And a couple of them actually surprised me. Now, North Carolina. I've been hearing about North Carolina for a very long time. In fact, since I lived in Atlanta, from the years when I lived in Atlanta, I heard people always talking about North Carolina, particularly Raleigh, Durham, and Charlotte. I have friends that live there, and they love it. That particular region, the weather's not bad. I think they have fairly mild winters, not too terrible. And see, and I'm always talk about winters because I'm I don't like that cold. Y'all can have that. Richmond, Virginia. Virginia is not a place that I would find. Now, let me also state right quick, none of these are in any particular order. They're not in any particular order. I'm just reading them off because all of them have their good parts and they have their bad parts. But this is not a list that is in a order of preference. So Richmond, Virginia, and Alexandria, Virginia. I've never heard anything good from black folks in either of those. But hey, I don't know a lot of people there either, but I've not heard so much that was good. However, these two names continue to pop up. But see, it goes back to what I said earlier. Some of this stuff is, hearsay. Okay. Then, of course, we have the great state of Texas. And this particular state, like North Carolina, is one that continues to come up almost in every conversation when people start talking about migration and relocation. And the major cities are Houston, Austin, Dallas, and San Antonio. And in fact, a recent poll found that San Antonio is within the top 5 of cities to move for black folks to move to in America. Now, I can tell you, living here myself, the living is easy. One good thing about the state of Texas, we don't have state income tax. So that's one thing. Now, the one drawback to Texas is that if you're going to be a homeowner, the property taxes are a little higher than most. However, the housing is a little less than most. Not cheap, but it ain't crazy either. Austin, I love Austin. Austin cost of living is very high because the tech industry has moved into Austin in a major way. They actually call Austin Silicon Valley South. Almost every major company that deals in tech, Microsoft, just name one, they're there. And a lot more are moving there. So, of course, that has given a boost to San Antonio because everyone doesn't want to pay the exuberant prices for living conditions. So they move in between those two places. You have a city on the way from Austin to San Antonio, which is about 45 minutes away. You got one called Buda. You got Selma. You got New Braunfels. And you have, it's one more. Anyway, all of these small cities are now building up because we're becoming a twin city, so to speak, to Austin. So it's almost going to be one big swath of city before long, within the next, I figure, 10 to 15 years. So it's to me, now the one thing that I love the most about San Antonio is the weather. Unlike Houston, it's not quite as humid. Houston has good weather too, except Houston tends to flood a lot. Dallas is also a very up and coming city, very good for black folks. But Dallas gets cold. I left Chicago because the hell with snow and cold. Y'all can have that. But my Dallas brethren, they managed to do all right with it up there. Then more power to them. So I said all that to say that Texas is absolutely a fantastic choice. No matter which major city in this state that you choose is the one. A lot of people from California have migrated here. In fact, California and New York. There's a lot of transplants coming this way from there. In fact, I've seen a lot of people come this way from Georgia, out of Atlanta. Another city, now this is one that was kind of a shock to me, Baltimore, Maryland. But of course, that's next to D.C. because you got what they call at the DMV area, um, Maryland, D.C., and Virginia. Of course, it gets snows and it gets cold. If you like snow, that's cool. I'm not sure what the fascination is, but the crime rate in Baltimore is probably a little higher than I would like for it to be. Now, I also heard that Charlotte had a pretty high crime rate. I hadn't checked the statistics on it, but just for the record. Now, of course, the old standby, Atlanta. They brought that one kept coming up. But one of the things about Atlanta, and this goes back to what I said earlier about particular needs, Atlanta is not, in my best opinion, a good place for single black women. One reason why, there is an abundance of single black women. There's an abundance of single black educated women. The chances of a sister who wants to be in a relationship, a marriage, start a family, any of that, is slim pickings around there for a multitude of reasons, which, include you got your players and your hustlers, your cats that's just, they ain't going that route. Everything is like they think the whole time it's a music video. Everything is not Housewives of Atlanta. It's just not. I've seen a lot of people go to Atlanta and fall on their face because they went there thinking that it was going to be one thing and it was something else. Atlanta, let me tell you, Atlanta has a bunch of HBCUs, not to mention other institutions of higher learning. And please believe, the average individual walking around Atlanta has at the minimum a bachelor's. If you don't have your educational background in order, don't even go there and apply for Walmart because you're not going to get a job. If you don't have some sort of a skill or some type of something going on that's going to get you money so you can live your life, that ain't the place. That's just my opinion. Do whatever you want. But I've seen a lot of people go to Atlanta, and Atlanta has a huge homeless population. There's a reason. Trust me. I've known people to work in restaurants waiting tables with a master's. Yes, I've seen it. And I ain't talking about just some isolated incident. I've seen a lot of it. Now, that may be for one reason or another. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But that is a highly educated city. Now, Washington, D.C., like I said, part of the DMV. Obviously, it's a lot happening over there. A lot of jobs. I think the median income for black people in Washington or the DMV area is rather high. I believe it's like 60-some thousand per year, 64 or something like that a year, which is higher than average, mainly because you got a lot of government jobs, a lot of work. There, people are able to get jobs there. So that's a good thing. In Tennessee, now somebody brought up Memphis. I'm going to tell you right now, that's a hard no. Memphis still has a little more growing to do before it becomes a city like when I first moved there. See, I told y'all I lived everywhere. When I first moved to Memphis, I thought it was going on its way to becoming another Atlanta. I was sorely mistaken because although it is a black city, it is still run by old white money. And when I say run by old white money, I mean just that. A lot of things are not going to happen there for some time to come. The old guard has to check out before things start to really move. The crazy thing about that whole region, matter of fact, today, my own cousin called me and he asked me about South Haven, Mississippi. Now, South Haven, Mississippi is a stone throw from Memphis. It's right across the border. In fact, I used to live right next to the Mississippi-Tennessee state line. And one thing that happened, and I witnessed this myself, which I thought was kind of crazy. The state of Tennessee turned down the opportunity to have riverboat casinos because they said it was going to bring crime and prostitution. Well, trust me, they didn't need no help bringing crime to Memphis or prostitution for that matter. They got enough strip clubs. But Mississippi did take on the riverboat casinos back when they first started becoming popular. And the crazy thing was, all of the people, they were so worried about losing their homes and having gambling problems and doing all the things all of the vices they were concerned with. They just got in their cars and they went across the Mississippi and they took all that money over there. So now Mississippi, having been one of the poorest states in the country for a very long time, has been on the come up for the last about 20 years. And they're doing quite well. In fact, they're prospering, while, unfortunately, the state of Tennessee, well, not the state, but just Memphis itself, has been in decline for some time. I've never seen a place where property values went down. Some of them, it's pretty bad. I love Memphis, and in fact, I even entertained moving back there. No, more haters per capita than any place you've ever been. Trust me on that. That's crazy. So those are the main ones that continue to come up. Oh, let me not forget Nashville. Nashville is also it's an up and coming place for black folks. Not a bad look at all. Of course, in all of these places, you're going to deal with one form or level of racism or another, because that's just the American way. But some worse than others. But yeah, Tennessee. And matter of fact, let me say this also. I heard Chattanooga is on the come up. Knox Vegas. I call it Knox Vegas. One of my partners used to live there in Knoxville. And he called it Knox Vegas. He said, man, it's going on. He's from Chicago too. He's telling me, man, it's going on over here. You ought to come check this out. I'm like, yeah, all right, dog. So anyway, so the important thing is this. Oh, found out also that part of this strange part of these migrations, there are actually people who have left California and moved to Michigan, not Detroit, but places like Lansing, and some of the outer cities, and they seem to be doing well because the cost of living is low, and they're able to work on their entrepreneurial endeavors. Which part of what this list, when I speak about some of these cities, keep in mind that I'm also considering not only the availability of employment and work, but also the opportunity for entrepreneurship. Now, I know entrepreneurship is not for everybody. I'm a serial entrepreneur. That's what I do. That's my life. But there are opportunities to do both. And that is everything. That is so important. If and don't underestimate some of these places. You have to remember that when you go places and there might be something that you're accustomed to where you're from. I watch a lot of black folks go places. Oh man, they ain't got this here. Oh man, what we gonna do? Oh, they don't have this here. Hey, if they don't have it there, guess what? That means there's an opportunity for you to put it there. You get that money. I'm just saying. In the state of Texas, I'm gonna go back to Texas right quick. Apparently, Texas has the most populace of black folks of any state. There are 3.5 million black people in Texas. And according to a Phipps Small Business study, Texas is the second best state for black entrepreneurs. See? Black firms have grown 34% from 2007 to 2012. And of course, like I said before, there is no state tax. And it is quite easy, as a matter of fact, to own, operate, and establish a business in this state. Ask me how I know. Yes, again, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I am the owner and CEO of multiple businesses. And it is easy to do here. And it is easy. And let me say this too. And I'm speaking from experience. Atlanta is very supportive of black businesses. And so are all of the cities in this state. Black folks here spend their money with black folks. I'm real happy to be able to say that. Now, of course, you're going to always have those ones that go around talking about, oh, I ain't shopping with black people. They always this, that, and the other. You know, them people who think that just because somebody is black and they're running the business, there's something wrong with it, but they'll take that same abusive behavior from white folks or Asians and won't open their mouth. So, of course, you know, I have a little problem with that. But, of course, I always do my business the way I'm supposed to. I always make sure that my customers are satisfied and everything that I do is on point, which we should all do. All businesses should be that way, but we know that they're not. But we should also not point out the fact that just because you didn't get what you wanted from a particular business, point out, oh, they're black. That's not the reason why they're not doing good business. The reason they're not doing good business is because they're just not good business people. And that happens across the board for any race. It doesn't matter. Now, when you start talking about relocation and moving around, one of the things that you got to worry about, some of the things that you got to consider. If you got children, be concerned about those schools. Do your homework. Check to make sure that the ranking of that school within the state is where it needs to be so that your children have an opportunity to thrive. Don't put your kids in a failing education system. That's not a good look. Also, of course, the number one issue for most people where that's concerned is you want to be absolutely sure that you are dealing with a good job market. You want your job market to be on point because you gotta work. You don't work, you can't eat. I just think James Brown said it best. You don't work, you can't eat. You know what I'm saying? So you got to make sure the jobs are there. Now let me say this about that part. I'm from Chicago. And I have been accustomed to, and this is my conditioning. I'm going to show you my conditioning. When I was growing up, you could go to a place and they'd be talking about, hey, we got a job available. Hurry up and come down there and fill out the application before more people show up. You get there, it's 3,000 people in line for 3 jobs. This is the way I'm accustomed to things being. So the funny thing about that is this. I remember some years ago, I had a good friend of mine who was about to move to Texas. His only worry, man, what about work? I ain't gonna be able to get a job. Yes, you will. I'm telling you, you will. He had an area of expertise. I said, man, you ain't gonna have no problem. You be working. You should probably be working in the first couple of weeks. Okay. Well, you gonna come here? No. I'm gonna. And this was before everybody was putting in applications on the internet and all of that. You know, when you scared, you can't do nothing. Closed mouth don't get fed. So that fear kept him right where he was because he was afraid that if he made any kind of move, he wouldn't be able to survive. One of the things that I told my children while they were growing up, don't ever let fear of moving around this bubble, and when I say bubble, I mean the planet, keep you from exploring the world and your life. Everything is not within a 4-block radius of your home. You got to get out here and you got to check it out. Now, I said that to say this. I told them, you go wherever you want in the world. I got your base. This your home base right here. No matter what happens, if you go out there and you lose everything you got, all you got to do is show back up at my door. Or you call me from wherever you at. We're going to have a plane ticket sitting on the counter when you walk up. Get home. This is what we have to do for our children in order for them to persevere and to thrive. We cannot keep them locked down in one place because we're scared. See, we let our own fears hold our children back. And that's something I never did. And I'm proud to be able to say that my children have traveled the world. Hell, my daughter spent one summer traveling across the Australian outback, hit every city in Australia, every major city. Sent me pictures of kangaroos and all kind of stuff. Her and her boyfriend, they bought a car. They went to Australia, bought a car, and drove it across the outback. Climbed the mountains, Machu Picchu, lived in Paris, lived in Spain. You got to let them roll. You got to let them ride. All right? And I'm saying that to everybody here. Don't be afraid to pimp the whole bubble. You got to check these things out. All right? And trust me, it's work everywhere. Here in Texas, there's plenty of work. It's worked in other places. When you live in a city like Chicago and you're so accustomed to not being able to get a job, you think the rest of the world operates like that, and it just doesn't. That's an unusual situation, trust me. The other thing is housing. We got to be concerned about where we're going to live, so we have to make sure that we can afford to live where things are, and decide what type of housing we want, whether we're going to rent, whether we're going to purchase, or whatever the case may be, depending on how large your family is or if it's just you. You can make those choices from there. But just think about, again, property taxes and whether or not you're going to want to live in a suburban area, in a city area. This is why sometimes you got to get up and you got to go visit these places. Now, the other thing is you got to worry about the population. And this is actually an important thing. I remember when I first moved here to San Antonio, I had somebody that I knew who had just left San Antonio, and one of their gripes was, it's too Mexican. Now, that's not a slight against my Mexican friends, but culturally speaking, I think everybody wants to some degree, be around their own people. And San Antonio we're here, but you kind of got to know how to move around to get to us. But we here. We up in here deep. And all you got to do is give a good concert or a good event, the skating rink, one of these stepper sets. We fall out the woodwork around here. You'll be like, damn, I didn't know there was this many black people in San Antonio. Yes, we will come out. Plus, this city is also what we call military city. There are a ton of bases here. We have Army, we have Air Force here in San Antonio. We got probably, at one time I believe there were 8 bases here. I think there are 4 that are active now. So there's a lot of military, a lot of transient people who come in and come and go. So that's kind of cool. So you want to be mindful of the population, but also while you're worrying about the population, be concerned about the diversity that your children are going to experience in their school system. I think everyone should want their children to experience levels of diversity in order that they understand how the rest of the world works and not just be limited to being around their own people. Alejandro Aguilar, my man Alex, he said, me being Mexican, I have left cities because it was too Mexican. Diluted wages. Oh, dig that. Thank you for that, Alex, for putting that little tidbit in there. So you have to be concerned about the populace and make sure that it's something that you can live with, because when you get into other places, one of the things that I think I even had to learn this myself, when you first leave a city and you've been there all your life and you move to other places, we have a tendency to make too many comparisons. We try to make everything be, well, it's not like this where I'm from. Well, where I'm from, we do this, that, and the other. Well, what you did when you were there is what you did when you were there. You're no longer there. When I first moved to Texas, I remember going into the Chamber of Commerce, which, by the way, is another resource that you will want to pay attention to as you consider moving into other areas. Always contact your Chamber of Commerce to find out what kind of statistics of people, businesses, and what's available to you. But I remember when we walked into the Chamber of Commerce here, and I was applying for my first business license here in Texas. And the man told me, he said, yeah, because I said, yeah, well, we just moved here from Atlanta. And he said, yeah. He said, well, do me a favor. He said, I want you to think about where you came from and all the stuff that you know about those places. He said, I want you to forget it. This is Texas. He said, you need to forget everything else that you thought or what you're thinking, and let me walk you through the way we do things in Texas. And he wasn't lying. Years earlier, I had to learn that you don't compare places when you go other places. It's not necessary. And in fact, you often insult the local flavor. You don't want to do that. So just be mindful of where you are. Be happy for the experiences that you had, and try to carry the good things with you, and don't try to make one thing be something else, because everything is different. There's variety everywhere you go. So the variety of everything and the things that you see are going to grow you and make you better. So be able to embrace the newness of wherever it is that you decide to migrate to. Food. Now, this is another one of those things where you start to compare things, and that can get you also in trouble. Now, as much as I enjoy a good Mexican dish, I have to admit that I am burnt the hell out on tacos and Mexican food. I've had enough. So whenever, and I'm just telling y'all, all y'all who know me, when I come visit your city and you know I'm there and you, hey, come on, let's go get something to eat. Please don't say let's go get Mexican because I'm gonna be very upset. I don't want a damn Mexican nothing. Trust me. I've had all I can stand. I'm up to my eyeballs in Mexican. No, please no. No, no Mexican food. So, with that said, it's hard because, like, for example, when you go to places like Chicago, and even when I go home to Chicago, let me tell you something, I get irritated. Chicago has great food. But the funny thing is, when you go on the South Side, do you know how hard it is to get some damn vegetables? Do you know how hard it is to get a plate of vegetables, to get vegetables with your food? Everything is fried. You can get fried fish, you can get fried chicken, you can get fried shrimp, you can get fried, and fried. They got it all. But it's hard as hell to get some greens, anything green on the South Side. Now, there are places to go, but my point is there should be more. So the food thing is something that you have to consider when you move places. You have to be, or otherwise you need to be worried about eating at home and cooking at home and not worrying too much about trying to eat out. In fact, we've cut the eating out thing quite a bit. Okay. Now, the other thing is accessibility to resources. So, because of all of the different areas that I'm involved in business wise, there are things that I need. So, I need to be able to live in a city that provides me access to certain products, certain supplies, and things like that. So, I'm always mindful about the abundance of certain or the availability of certain things. That's just something to consider. Insurance. Now, when you move to a different city, believe it or not, your insurance rates go up and down. If you live in a city where car theft is very high, like I'll give you an example. Right now, in the 21 days that we have been into this year, in the city of Chicago, there have been 144 carjackings. 144 in 21 days. You already know car insurance in certain zip codes is through the roof. Period. So, these are the types of things you got to consider. Not to mention, of course, life insurance and homeowners insurance. Do a lot of houses get broken into and so on, that type of thing. Which brings me to my next point. Crime. Oh, the good old crime. What's the crime rates like in these cities? And then when you say crime rate, what type of crimes are we talking about? Are there more assaults? Are there more burglaries? Are there more car thefts? Are there more rapes? These are all things that you have to take into consideration and do your homework and find out about. We talked about basically the social and professional connections because, as you know, when you figure out the populace of an area, you know what type of people basically that you're dealing with. You kind of get an idea of their median income based on how they're living and where they're living, what type of an environment, what type of neighborhood, that kind of thing, and then what kind of people, you like to hang around, and if they like to be grown and sexy like you, or they just want to get down for theirs, you just have to, be around the right type of people. Transportation options. Now, some cities have bus lines. San Antonio happens to have a very good bus line. However, it is not as thorough as places like Chicago or New York. So you have to be considerate that there may be a necessity if you're not a driver. And I do know a lot of people from those cities who do not drive. So when you come to a place like a San Antonio or some of the other Texas cities, for example, or the Carolinas, you're probably going to need a car unless you choose your housing on a bus line that is going to take you into the areas that you want to be going to. So that's just yet another consideration. Black events. Yes. Check and see what kind of events come. Festivals, concerts, carnivals. Because let me tell you, in Austin, Texas, ooh wee baby. Listen, I have so much fun in Austin. Every year they have a concert where they just bring in just a ton of talent. And you can sit there in the park all day and night and just lose your mind. And it's just the coolest damn thing it's just cool. That's just one event. Plus, they have a ton of other good concerts. And the highlight of the year for Austin, Texas, is called South by Southwest. Look here. If there's an actor, a musician, a rapper, a tech head, a, a tech mogul, any of those people, they come to South by Southwest. South by Southwest is off the chain. In fact, South by Southwest is so huge, you can't even get into the city hardly while it's going on. And you damn sure better not even think about trying to drive your car around nowhere, because you're going to be stuck like Chuck in that I-35 traffic and on the streets. And they block off a lot of streets, lots and lots and lots and lots of concerts, lots of drunk people. It's off the chain. Oh, my God. So also consider how fast a city is growing. How fast is this city populating? How fast are people moving there a lot? What are all of the things that are making it grow and making it better? It's a lot. It's a lot. How bad is the racism? You know, believe it or not, there's still such a thing as sundown towns. So be very careful about that. If you move, like, say, for example, you move you move near a big city and there's a little small town in the area. Well, it might be a sundown town. And, you know, if you don't know what a sundown town is, that's the place where you move, where white folks say you better not let the sun catch you here. In other words, by the time the sun go down, you need to be out of town. Oh, yeah, that's a thing. Look it up. Look it up if you don't know what I mean. Be mindful of the homeless population. Homeless population says a lot about that city. It tells you an awful lot about some of the things that might be going on and might not be going on. We talked about the weather already. We talked about diversity. Oh, here's a good one. Hospitals and medical care. Look at the state that you're talking about moving to and make sure that they have a decent medical care system, especially if you are in between insurance providers or any of that kind of thing. Make sure that you move to a place where the hospitals are on point, or that they can, that they're going to make sure that, you know, you taken care of. Because you got some cities, they'll turn your ass right around. You won't be there long. So the landscape and environment, lakes, parks, infrastructure, how is the city building up? Does it have good roads? Does it have, you know, all of the things necessary to make sure that, you know, people are living healthy, safe lives? Unlike Flint, Michigan, for example, the water's all screwed up. You got to take care, look at these type of things. Like, for example, in California, they have a water shortage. So these are the sorts of things that you have to be mindful of. If you up in the Dakotas, is there a lot of drilling? Is there a lot of, like down here in Texas, is there a lot of fracking and stuff like that? These are all things to consider. In fact, if you look up in the Ohio, Virginia, Pennsylvania area, there's a lot of fracking and drilling going on up there. Is that something that you're willing to deal with? Or can you, you know, is this, because you got to realize these are all environmental things that could potentially be a problem. Quality of life is very important, and without that, you have nothing. So you have to be considerate of all of these things in order to have or maintain that quality of life. So that's just some things to talk about. So this is where I'm about to. Okay, we talked about that already. We ain't gonna talk about that no more. We have an opportunity, y'all, to get back to a time where the Black Wall Streets, the Wilmington, North Carolinas, all of the places that have historically thrived and been successful within our own communities. Because the fact is this, Dr. King had a great idea in that he was seeking equality and justice for our people in order that we are able to have access. He didn't want to take anything from anybody. We just wanted access. But the mistake that we made, we dropped the ball. Why? Because we, instead of receiving access and just knowing we had it, rather than having access and maintaining our own, we let our own go because we got access. And therefore, we lost a lot in the process. We let our businesses fall. We stopped shopping with one another. We stopped cohabitating with one another the way that we did, that kept us strong and powerful, the way that we were during particular times. We have an opportunity to repeat that, only this time we also have the opportunity to maintain it, and we have the opportunity to not allow anyone else to come in and destroy it unchecked. Consider the places that you move, and consider being able to operate amongst one another as long as we possibly can to thrive as a culture and as a community. We are probably the only community in this entire country that tries as hard as we do to get away from one another than anybody else. All other cultures have the respect and understanding of one another enough that they're able to survive together, cohabitate, and build as a community. We must get back to that. We must get back to that. We must, matter of fact, forget getting back to it. We need to get on to it. Ain't no going back. We need to move on to that. We need to move on to the time where we are no longer dependent upon others for our meals. There's a lot coming down the pipe, y'all, in the future. We've had we've been able to get some previews of what the chaos is going to look like if things go bad. Y'all have heard me say before, we cannot continue to talk about the theys of the world. There is no they. We are they. We must work together and become the they that we seek to fix and build for us. They are not going to save us. They are not coming to help us. They are not going to provide what we need in order to continue to build our families and our communities in a way that make our children strong enough and capable enough to carry into the future who they are, what they are, and why they are. So we must build new crown jewels to replace the ones that were stolen. Rosewood, Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Wilmington, North Carolina, Jacksonville, Florida. The list goes on. Places in neighborhoods in Chicago, Bronzeville, places in New York, Harlem. I could go on all day. It's time, y'all. So as you migrate and you make your moves, give consideration to these things. Don't worry about the places that don't have what you think you want. Because when there's something not there, that means there's a vacuum. You can fill it. Now, last but not least, let me say this. There are cities where people are leaving in droves. Chicago, Illinois. Illinois is losing. In fact, I think Illinois ranks number 1 in people migrating away from that state, and for obvious reasons. Not to mention the fact that it's cold as hell. The taxes there are outrageous. 10.25% at the register. The gas is stupid high. Matter of fact, I went there one time, got off the plane to rent a car. The taxes on the rental car cost me twice as much as the rental car. The property taxes have gone through the roof. Ask me how I know that. The crime is bananas. Like I said, 144 carjackings in 21 days. It's no wonder people are trying to get the hell out of there. L.A. Black people are running out of L.A. like crazy. Cost of living is stupid high. California has a bunch of dumbass laws and a whole bunch of restrictions. Only state I ever been in where you can get a ticket for jaywalking. I mean, I know it's supposed to be illegal and all that, but they'll literally write you a ticket. I've seen them walk up to a person's car with a tape measure to make sure that the bumper was a certain height off the ground and try to write them a ticket if it didn't. I have seen some of the most ridiculous things in California. It is truly, and no offense to my Californians, but it's truly the land of fruits and nuts. And I still got property up there too. Anyway, the last place people are getting out of is New York City. They're getting up out of there. I got a partner in Atlanta. When he left New York, he sold his house. He got to Atlanta, paid cash for his new house, and still had $250,000 in his pocket and had 4 times the house that he had in New York. So it's no wonder that people are getting out of there. I mean, it only makes sense. It's crazy. I don't want to pay that kind of money for a little bitty house to live somewhere where it's freezing cold and the people are rude. I don't know how many of y'all been in New York, but boy, New Yorkers, you talk about some direct folks. I'm from Chicago, and we real direct there, but boy, them folks in New York, Lord have mercy. Them words, this kind of stuff they be saying, boy, get you in a fight in Chicago. You get your ass whooped. So, ladies and gentlemen, that completes my list of stuff to consider and cities to think about. So, like I said earlier, I am not putting any one city above another. I think that these are just the things that consideration should be given to and try to think about. Don't be afraid when it's time to make a move. Just do it. Just do it, y'all. You got to be ready to get up and get out. Somewhere, some way, it'll be all right. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to suggest that you like my pages, particularly my YouTube family. Subscribe, hit the little bell over there so that when I come on, you'll know. Facebook family, share, like, and make sure you hit your notifications so you'll know when we're on. My Twitch and Twitter family, my Instagram family. I think my Instagram family gone. They only on for about an hour. I want to thank you all for tuning in. You can check me on any one of those platforms during 7 o'clock, Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. We're going to get in here and we're going to get it in. And I think today was refreshing because we didn't talk about too much politics. We stayed away from that subject, and I'm very happy about that. I'm happy that I can move on to new subjects now because the distraction in the White House is gone. So I want to thank all of my voters. I want to thank Stacey Abrams and all of those people who made it possible to turn the state of Georgia blue, because it just made my life a little bit better. It gave me a time to be creative and think about more things, more important things that we can discuss as black folks, because this is the Black Factor, where perspective is everything, and I got the news that you can use. Don't forget to get your copy of The Black Factor, the book, bmforbes.com, y'all. Get your copy. We got them in stock. They're ready to go out the door. Get you one. Read about your history. Understand how it applies to your life today. That book is designed specifically for young men to get a little bit of perspective and help them on their way. So I want to say thank everyone for tuning in and hanging out with your boy today. Oh, before I go, I'm sending a shout out to my man, Tony Adway, brother. Get well soon. We love you. We here for you. If you need me, I'm here. Give me a shout anytime. TA, let's get back up and get at it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Everybody have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful evening, a wonderful weekend. And we out. Love, peace, and chicken grease, y'all. Deuces.